Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from AnthonyMorganti.com. Those of you that watch my videos might remember that a few weeks ago I did a video where I introduced this Amkov OX5 smartphone camera from Banggood.com. And the reason why I talked about this camera is I mentioned that I have a lot of folks that watch my videos that are very interested in photography, but they cannot afford a more expensive camera. When I say more expensive, I mean a DSLR, mirrorless camera, something like that. But they're still interested in photography and all they have is their smartphone. And they often ask me about things like this. These cameras that kind of tie into your smartphone that hopefully help you take better pictures. So I went and I got one from Banggood.com to try out. And I mentioned in that video, once I finally get out to take some pictures, that I would share those pictures with you. So I was finally able to get out today to take some shots. Now, to refresh your memory, the camera comes in a couple different iterations. We have this base camera right here that you're looking at in this picture, and it's a 5x optical zoom, 20 megapixel still camera, 1080p video camera. Now, I didn't take any video at all with it. I just took some still images. I got it in this iteration where it's the exact same camera, but then it comes with this attachment, and it's a wide angle slash macro lens attachment. And I took some shots with it and without it, and these are the shots. Now, first impression right out of the box with the camera is that the for a 20 megapixel camera, I would have think that the resolution is going to be really strong, really great resolution, and it wouldn't be as much noise. Now you can see these images are quite noisy, so I was a little disappointed in that. Um, the other thing that I didn't like at first, but it took me a while to get used to it. Once I got used to it, it wasn't an issue at all. There is a little bit of a lag when you press the shutter. Um, you kind of pre-focus, so you kind of frame your scene, and let's say you want to focus right here, you would press on the screen at that point, and the camera will focus. Then you press the shutter, well then it focuses again on that point and then takes the picture. So there's a little bit of a lag there, and that took me a little while to get used to. Now, um, beyond that, I mean, there's that it works well with the app. The way it works is the app has or the camera itself puts out Wi-Fi. So you turn the camera on, turn the Wi-Fi on, then you turn on or go to your phone, go to the Wi-Fi of your phone, and you uh, join the Wi-Fi network of the camera. Then you open the app, and the app now can control the phone. You cannot control shutter speed or aperture, but you can control ISO. The ISO settings are 100 to 1600, and it has an auto ISO setting. I shot all these images on auto ISO. Curiously, when you're in auto ISO, it will go down all the way to ISO 50, but that is not an option if you are manually going to set your ISO. Again, the lowest you could go is 100 manually, 100 to 1600. But I shot all the images in auto ISO. And it does have some shooting modes. So it has like a landscape mode, and that would, of course, would optimize the shutter speed and the aperture for a landscape. It has a portrait mode, and again, it would optimize those settings for a portrait. I didn't use any of the shooting modes. I just used standard shooting mode and tried, the camera out as is pretty much. Um, I used auto white balance, although you can manually put daylight, cloudy, fluorescent, or incandescent white balance in the camera. It has different color effects. It has sepia tone, black and white, red, blue, green filters. I just used it standard. I didn't use any of these color effects. And it does have exposure compensation up to plus and minus 2 full stops. Um, I took all the images without any exposure compensation. It does have different metering modes, center, multi, and spot. I shot everything in multimeter or multi-spot metering mode. So I didn't really experiment much with the metering modes. So right, just to reiterate, to me, the downfall or the things that I didn't care for it are the noise, which we can get rid of, and we're going to get rid of it in a minute in Lightroom. The noise, and you cannot set aperture and or shutter speed. So that I didn't care for. At first I didn't really care for the shutter delay, but I got used to that. So that really wasn't a big deal. All right. Um, I went out taking shots today. It's super windy outside. Very, very windy day. I mean, we have high wind warnings. So what I found was when I was these first few shots, I shot without the wide angle lens adapter on the camera. And as you can see in this preview of this video here, this image here, it doesn't have a lot of depth. So I had a hard time getting a steady shot. It was hard to hold the camera. I really didn't know how to hold it. I have a iPhone 6 Plus, so it's kind of a big phone, and the wind kept catching the phone and moving it. And you have to hold it out away from you a little bit because you're looking at the screen of the phone. You know, that's your viewfinder, the screen, the LCD screen of the phone. And then you would touch the the face of the phone where you want to focus. Like on this image here, maybe I focused there. So I would touch there. Then you would have to press the shutter button and take the picture. So I had a hard time getting some steady shots at first and getting a straight shot. And mainly that at first was because I wasn't used to that shutter delay. And I started tilting the camera. You can see this one is leaning a little bit to the right. This shot's leaning even more to the right. So it took me a little while to get used to that. Once I got used to that, it wasn't that big of an issue. So we took some shots here. Again, it's super, super windy. It was hard to hold the camera still. Now you'll see now these were all not zoomed in at all. When I zoom in, now we're getting some blurry shots. I zoomed in at 5x optical zoom here, and it was just very difficult to hold it still because it was so windy. Again, that was without the wide angle adapter, okay? So there again, these are super unusable shots. They're so blurry. I put on the wide angle adapter, and when I did that, it added some length to the camera. And let me do that. There we go. It added some length to the camera. And when it added that length, I was able to put my left hand underneath like the camera and the lens, and I was able to hold it a lot more steady, and I was getting some sharper images. Now in doing that though, with when you're shooting into the sun or the sun's just off to the side, I got some lens flare. Now, it was very bright and I couldn't see the LCD of the phone very well, so I didn't notice the lens flare when I was taking it. It's not too difficult to avoid that lens flare if you know it's going to happen. In this case, I would have just put my left hand up in the air and not have it in the frame, but just throw some shade across the front of the camera lens, you know, front the lens here, and then I would have got rid of this lens shade. And you can take a shot holding the camera with one hand. Now, it still would have been difficult today because it was so windy. So any of the shots where I was shooting into the sun, I got lens flare. It does not come with a lens hood. I'm sure you could make one, get some black construction paper you could wrap around there. Just be careful because it is wide angle, so you have to be careful that you're not going to vignette at all. But that would definitely help. Um, so these shots, I was at this end of this walkway and took the shot of this old grain elevator. And then I walked back up this sidewalk and I was standing next to my car and I just took some shots. And the car was partially blocking the wind, so I was able to get some better shots. Then I went to a totally different location, the Erie Basin Marina near downtown Buffalo, and I took some shots. And now I was starting to get used to the delay, you know, the shutter delay, and was able to get some decent shots. I zoomed in a little bit on that shot, zoomed in more on this shot, and you can see it's fairly sharp. Now again, I went up, there's an observation tower down here, so I went to the top of the observation tower and shot into the sun, so I have some lens flare again. Then I took some shots of the city from the top of the tower. They're not bad shots. I've been up here a bazillion times and taken a bazillion pictures, so I've taken worse. And here's another one into the sun. So bottom line, in my opinion, It would be a good camera, in my opinion, if you have a youngster in your household that's very interested in photography, but they're the type of kid that might have a intense interest in something for a few months and then drop it and move on to the next best thing. So you're not sure you want to spend quite a bit of money on a DSLR or mirrorless camera for that child, uh, but you want to try to foster their interest in photography. This might be the way to go if they have a smartphone. You get this, the app is free. Uh, this with this camera, they'd be able to learn compositional rules, other things about composition. There's exposure, metering. You could do different metering with the camera, exposure compensation. They could do some creative things with it. It has those color effects that I talked about. Unfortunately, it doesn't allow you to adjust the aperture and or the shutter speed, but it does have those picture modes. So if you're doing a landscape or a portrait or an action shot, you could put it in different the applicable picture mode, and it would optimize those settings. So this would be definitely, uh, in my opinion, the way to go. So you're not spending all that money. This way, they could still learn photography. They could, you know, uh, hone their skills, and then if they show an aptitude for it and they keep that interest for a while, then you could invest in the more expensive camera. The other thing that I consider a downfall for the camera is it doesn't shoot RAW. But in that instance where you're purchasing this for a younger person and you're not sure they're going to keep up with the hobby, that could be an advantage because if you're shooting RAW, then you have to buy software to process the RAW file. Because this will shoot JPEGs, the JPEG is pretty much processed, so the youngster will know if they have a good shot or not right off the bat. So that could be an advantage. I do recommend that you definitely get it with this wide angle attachment. It also will shoot macro. I didn't have the opportunity to shoot any macros today. And as I mentioned, it was very, very windy. So if there was anything that I could have shot a macro of, chances are it was just blowing around and I wouldn't have been able to get a good shot anyway. So for $125.99, that's the package I would recommend you get. And then if you still have Lightroom or something like that, you can process it from here to your taste. And I'll just process this one because I kind of like this shot here. So those of you that watch my Lightroom videos know I usually bring highlights down on these landscapes and I open up shadows. So I'm kind of making it flatter. And the reason why I do that is when I add some clarity to it, it adds that contrast back. And then I go to the tone curve to add contrast. I usually use medium contrast. I just prefer that, the way that contrast looks, to when using the slider. I prefer not to use the slider. That's just personal preference. You could watch those videos why I do that. Adjust the whites and blacks real quick. And nothing special there. Maybe turn vibrance up a tiny bit. Now, it is noisy, and I would then just go and do some noise reduction in here. And we could pretty much clean up that noise with the detail panel. Um, Now, there's no real lens corrections here because Lightroom does not know this lens at all. It's not in the database, so you won't be able to do just one-click lens corrections with it. Now, you do get some distortion now and then. You would have to go in manual mode and you would have to move the sliders around to correct for the distortion. Um, but it's beyond the scope of this video. I'm not really going to do that here. And then all I do usually on my landscapes, I put a darker vignette on just to draw everyone's attention towards the middle of the frame. And that's it. I pretty much consider this image done. So that's it. That is the Amkov OX5 smartphone camera available from banggood.com. So again, if you cannot afford a more expensive DSLR or mirrorless camera, or you know someone that is very interested in photography and you don't want to invest all that money into them yet, this might be the way to go. And I'd like to thank everyone that watches my videos, particularly all of you that watch my videos that really don't own one of these more expensive cameras, but you're really interested in photography. And I want to try to do more videos for different products that you could use with your smartphone. I mentioned in that other video, and I think I mentioned it earlier in this video, I am the worst smartphone photographer on the planet. So I'm going to work on trying to get better at taking images with my smartphone, and I'll try out and try to get some of these other attachments for smartphones, and we'll do maybe some videos on different apps for a smartphone and things like that. So hopefully that will interest some of you. All right? I'd like to thank again everyone watching my videos. I really do appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys soon.